everyone, this is KennedyHawk from the Marvel Champions Monthly Fan Podcast team. Today we're here with another Power Up episode talking about a hero in all four different aspects and how that hero is viable and exciting in each one. Today my special guest is Andy N. Andy, how's it going?
It's going great.
Going really good. How's it hanging? You're feeling very spiderish today?
Yeah, I am. I've had a bunch of time with Spider-Man protection recently. I've kind of been obsessed with figuring out Spider-Man protection versus Rhino heroic, and just on solo. And that's actually like all I've been playing with Marvel Champions all week. So yeah, I've been having fun with it. I'm excited for the episode.
So have you gotten the win yet against Heroic right now?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Okay,
would say
okay.
honestly, Heroic 1, it's like taking it down consistently, like almost easily. But
Nice.
Heroic 2, I got a win like first try, I think. No, second try. And I was like, wow, this must be really good. It's been really hard to get back to like any consistent win against Heroic 2, but I guess that's probably fine.
Seems fair. Seems fair.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about playing as Spider-Man in Marvel Champions?
That's a great question. I think my immediate response would be Spider Sense. I just love that when the villain is attacking you, you get an extra card, and that's why Toe to Toe was such a fun card to me when that came out in the Hulk pack. That makes the villain attack you and gives you that attack back. As well as now Bait and Switch is my new. That's what I've been playing with all week. I've been practicing Bait and Switch, which is a new card in Scarlet Witch, which will also make the villain attack you. I just love that. It's so fun and such a cool thing to think about how to utilize that well.
What does that one do again?
Oh, Bait and Switch. It says it's a 1-cost protection event with the energy resource. And it says hero action thwart. Villain attacks you, remove 4 threat from the main scheme.
Oh, and that's a Scarlet Witch card?
Yes, yep.
Nice. Yeah, that one's awesome.
It's great for Spider-Man because he can make the villain attack him. He's totally well equipped for that. He's going to draw a card, which no other hero will do, and then he'll, he could backflip if the villain has a big attack, or he could take a hit and then remove the 4th threat and then flip down and heal with Aunt May. It's a perfect card for Spider-Man.
It's got awesome Spider-Man art on it too.
It does, yep.
All right, well, let's talk about Spider-Man a little bit. So what are your favorite cards from Spider-Man's hero kit?
Ooh, let's see. I would say web shooter is okay. Let's see. No, let me start with
all 15, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do actually. I really like his whole hero set. But I would say, I guess I would start with Black Cat. She's probably the one card that, when I get her, it's like, all right, here we go. Gonna play her, and she's just so great because she helps him with one of his an issue that many heroes can struggle with, which is like minions and dealing with tough, because she just does that one little ping all game, so she can help him finish off a 3 health minion. If he and her attack, they can knock out a Hydra guard or whatever it's called, the mercenary, or she can ping off a toughness before he does a swinging web kick. So she's probably my favorite, but Aunt May is my favorite support in the game. She's amazing. The fact that like you flip down, she heals you for 4, and then she can heal you for 4 again before you flip back. I think that's so fun, and not just because she can do it, but also because it encourages you to play to the edge and like push your luck with Spider-Man. Because like if you can get down to a low health, 1 or 2 health, is where you'll get the full use of Aunt May if you flip.
Yep, and
So
it feels
that's
super thematic for Spider-Man to be, like, dangling at
super
the edge.
exactly like taking all these hits and then coming back up. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I feel like every card he has is amazing. Like, his worst cards are, I guess, his resource generator has uses, which is not as good as most other people's, but it's also almost free and it's wild. I guess Spider
Yeah,
Tracer is kind of like situational, but like it's situational, but still really good. It's not
yeah,
situational and
exactly.
never used. So
Exactly. It is situational, but if you think about it in terms of resource cost to what you're getting, it's one of the best value threat removal in the game because it's one cost for 3 threat is amazing. And with it's free to play if you use his scientist ability in
yep,
Alter Ego to play it. It is situational, which is tough, in solo especially, I'd say. Like in in multiplayer, there's gonna be more minions. So as long as you communicate and tell someone like, hey, don't kill that minion, I'm gonna
I
throw
need
a
it.
spider tracer on it. And yeah, I need it. I need it. And so that's the one issue for him. And with that too, there's a couple cards you would think might work well with him. So like Into the Fray, for example. I'm not sure yet. I haven't had a chance to really play with it yet. But Into the Fray, you attack a minion, and then whatever excess damage past the minion's health is going to remove threat. But it doesn't really work well with Spider Tracer because if you have Spider Tracer out, you are probably already dealing with all the threat you need to. Quite
Yeah,
possibly.
you almost have to use Spider Tracer on like a side scheme at that point.
Exactly. And same thing with what's the core set card? Zero cost, remove 2 threat from a scheme after you defeat a minion. What is that card? It has Captain Marvel
Oh,
art.
chase them down.
Chase him down. Again, it has a mental resource, so you'd think that he'd like it because Black Cat likes mental resources, and it's like, oh, this is cheap threat removal and aggression, but it's actually it's awkward with spider tracers because it's kind of like, well, spider tracers really is going to be removing threat if you have minions out there. So you need to find other ways to remove threat. So that's one issue with his set is there's no good threat removal other than spider tracers. Um, and then one other issue I'd say is webbed up does cost a lot. And if you aren't careful, you're going to totally throw your tempo off if you spend your whole turn playing that, even though it should by rights like give you tempo because it's stopping the villain from attacking twice. It could be taking your whole hand to play it, and it has a little bit of cross cross. I'm realizing more and more how much it's at cross purposes with Spider Sense because he actually wants the villain to attack him.
Yeah, that's the problem I have, especially in heroic. Like you're saying, like you'd think it would buy you tempo, but you spend your whole turn. And if Rhino gets 2 encounter cards, if one of them is an assault or a stampede, all of a sudden, like you spent your whole turn webbed up and you gain no ground. That's when you run into problems.
Exactly, which is why it's so fun playing heroic Rhino and protection because protection allows you to have so much toughness out there with like Luke Cage and with Muster Courage, and then of course he has his own backflip. So I've been playing it where I'll get attacked 3 or 4 times in a villain phase, and be fine because I have tough on my allies and tough on Spider-Man, and maybe I had a backflip, maybe I defended. But now I'm going to the into my hero phase with like 8 or 9 cards in hand. And it's amazing.
Pretty good. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I played webbed up maybe once in my whole week of uh, playing heroic against Rhino. So at least against Rhino on heroic, it's been a little bit of a dead card. Um, but it can be better in multiplayer too if you time it right, where like maybe you play it and so then you know that the villain will be attacking like 2 other people before it comes around to you. That can be a thing you can do, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Black Cat's my favorite card as well. I think she's one of those allies you can build a deck around. When we get to the leadership deck, that's basically what I did. I've tried to build around her forced response a lot, but it's really awkward. It was kind of foretelling of how powerful make the call and rapid response were going to be, because it's after you play Black Cat, when you use make the call and when you use rapid response, you're not playing Black Cat, so you're unable to trigger her like forced response extra. But her ability to
Exactly.
get you income is really cool. So I've tried to make a lot of decks where I thin to like just mental resources in Black Cat and just try to churn through her as much as possible. But it's really hard because Spider-Man's got so many events that makes it difficult.
Yes, exact. I would exactly agree with that. That it's I don't think it's worth building a completely mental deck just to try and take advantage of that. But I do think it's totally worth it. Like when you're just weighing various cards to include the mental resource as like just one more factor in terms of like, oh, should I go with, you know, Braun or Valkyrie? Maybe I'll go with Braun because he's a mental resource. And that way it's just one more card in my deck that might be a kind of a free card to draw when I play my Black Cat, which I'll probably play
Yeah,
to hit just once. But yeah,
hopefully, right?
hopefully, yes. Unless concussive blast can be a problem for keeping her alive sometimes. If you're playing
Totally.
Ultra under attack.
What kind of weaknesses do you see in Spider-Man's kit? Is there something that he lacks that well-rounded heroes or heroes that are jack of all the trades have nailed down really well?
Yeah, I'd say the two issues are threat, for one thing. So threat is an issue. Again, there's nothing in his kit that does anything for threat removal other than the Spider Tracers. And they can be, you could go many games having them at totally appropriate times that help you out a lot. And you could go a bunch of games but you just never get one at the right time to be able to use on a minion. So if you don't have those, well, Black Cat is not made for threat removal. So you can, barely do any threat removal. Spider-Man can barely do any threat removal himself. And so there's really nothing in there for him to do threat removal. And then until recently, that made some of the aspects, like especially aggression and protection, really awkward if you wanted to try and deal with threat, which if you're playing solo, you have to deal with threat. I would
Yeah,
argue that now with basic having that huge steroid from Wasp, I think this is kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing for my two deck builds that I have for Spider-Man today. But I think that with basic, you have enough allies that can deal with threat now in basic that really it helps them to be extra viable in every aspect, even in solo, to help smooth out the threat issue.
yeah. His one saving grace is kind of that he has 3 defense, so he can stay in hero form for a really long time. Now, Aunt May and Peter's scientist ability are really good alter ego abilities and cards,
Yeah.
so it's tempting to flip, but you can stay in hero form and avoid extra threat getting placed in the main scheme, which helps a little bit.
Yes, I would agree with that. The other issue, though, for him is I would say minions, because he also does not have a ton in his kit for dealing damage or spreading damage. Unlike someone like Ant-Man who has his 3 army of ants. He has when he flips to giant form, he deals the damage. He can deal 3 damage in large form, or the 1 damage in tiny form. And Wasp also is really was it his signature ally Wasp could deal 4 damage when she comes out, or 2, whatever he needs her to do. And his giant stomp also like spreads damage. So he's got so much ways that he can spread out his damage. Spider-Man does not have that. Spider-Man has just his 2 damage that he deals. And then he's got Black Cat dealing the 1 damage. And then he's got these big swingy web kicks for 8 damage. And, there's no overkill with that. There's nothing to kind of make that less of just a big, expensive attack. And so when you're dealing with someone who's, got 5 health or something, it's really awkward. Like, do I use a swinging web kick on that guy, or otherwise, how am I going to take him down? Like, you really need to have a plan for how you're gonna deal with minions, and minions, I would say especially, but also like I guess more generally, you could say awkward amounts of damage placement, if that makes sense. Because like,
Yeah, you're not
so
very
similarly,
versatile.
yeah. Well, because like Rhino's suit, right? Again, 5 damage has to be placed on it. When that comes out, it's just so awkward because you're like, that's not really 5. To me, that might very well be 8 that it's really going to soak, because I'm probably going to have to just use a swinging web kick to take out that whole suit. And so, yeah, anything like that, when there's toughs all over the place, and if you're getting stunned or getting exhausted or you had to exhaust to defend, he just does not have a lot of ways to deal with those small bits of damage. And like you were saying, he wants to stay in hero form so he doesn't have to flip to alter ego, because he might not have a great way to deal with the threat that's going to come out of him flipping to alter ego. But the problem is he can handle villain attacks typically pretty well. But if he's getting attacked by the villain, and also there's a bunch of minions who he couldn't finish off who are also attacking him, it's hard for him to take all that damage, and it's certainly not going to work for him to flip down and let those minions scheme along with the villain, because he's going to probably not be able to recover from that at least in many aspects. And so I would say that is his other weakness, or at least his other element to him that you have to really work around.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with those for his weaknesses. Those are the primary two. I would say he's very thematic, but I don't get the quippiness of Spider-Man in his cards. It's pretty good in the flavor text, but those awesome Spider-Man puns and quips I expect from the comics, they don't just come out at me. I wish there was a card to make me feel it.
Yeah. Who would you say is the best quipper in the 3 different movie versions?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess that's more about the writers. Definitely not Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I feel like this one feels a little bit more like Toby, where it
Yeah,
feels like you feel heroic. You feel like you're getting the crap kicked out of you often, but you get back up and you go after it. You're very scrappy, but you're not just being like, here, take this. Like, I'm with ease flipping and flying around, and you know the quippiness of, I think Andrew Garfield has some pretty good quipping, right?
this is pretty good. He had passion. It was good.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to flipping here in a little bit, but what are your top couple play tips for piloting Spider-Man? Are there things that you feel like you always play wrong, like rules misses, or are there like strategy tips that you say, like always mulligan for this card or always look for this at setup?
Yeah, good question. I would say, again, with the threat issue / minion issue, many scenarios throw a side scheme and or minion at you on setup, and so having a plan in your deck building, and certainly in your mulliganing, for how to deal with those. So again, I have Rhino heroic, in my mind right now, but Rhino expert is always going to have breaking and taken, and there's no reason that whatever hero you're playing, there's no reason that should stay on the table, right? Like, you got to get off the table
Yeah,
first
immediately.
thing. Yeah. So for him, if you can get, you need to have a 2-threat, 2-thwarting ally come out. Nick Fury is amazing for that, because then you
Good
can just play.
opener. Yeah.
Yeah, great opener because you play him, remove some threat, and you also know he's gonna soak that first hit for you. Um, and I would say, but with Nick Fury too, you could play Nick Fury, and you could quite possibly get another ally like Mockingbird, or I would say Ironheart is a great second ally to have out there.
Yep.
Uh, and then just the two of them can finish thwarting. Spider-Man can attack. So usually dealing with the side scheme is the first priority, I'd say. And so that's one strategy tip. Another strategy tip is, I think I alluded to this earlier, but Aunt May, you shouldn't be thinking of her as healing 4. You should be thinking of her as healing 8. And therefore, you should think of, Spider-Man as, how can I take a lot of damage without necessarily risking death?
Yep.
And only then flip down. So, if you don't add anything to Spider-Man in terms of endurance or honorary Avenger, he has a very small window to get the best use out of her. You have to be at 2 health or less, which is really 2 health or 1 health to get a full 8 heal from Aunt May. So I think endurance is a card that should be stapled to every single Spider-Man deck.
That's embarrassing. I don't have it in either of mine, but I should now that I.
Really? Oh man, I think it's just so helpful. It's so helpful. Now, I will say, when I play it or play with it, I don't always play it the first time I see it because there might be something more pressing to do. But it is an easy way to widen that window, such that now getting down to 5 or less health will get the full use out of Aunt May.
And you're not saying don't flip unless you can heal 8. Like if you can heal 6 or 7, it's still pretty good to flip down because you're not exhausting it all to do a recovery action. Um, but if you're flipping when you only have 4 damage, maybe you should stick around for one more turn.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would say, I wouldn't say don't flip. Like if you need to heal, or if in the balance of things, you could flip, heal, etc. Don't not flip just to wait until you can do the full. But you should be trying to play such that you just again, if you have Aunt May out there and you think you can afford to otherwise flip down to Alter Ego on a fairly regular basis, just be looking to soak hits constantly so that you can then take use of Aunt May. I think just lean into that. I think if you've got Aunt May out there, if you don't have
That's
Aunt May,
smart.
you have to be a lot more conservative with that and maybe defend with that big. Here's another strategy tip I'd say. He's one of the few heroes who has maybe the only hero. Yeah, I think the only hero who has no difference between his recovery and his defense. Unlike, I think even Hulk has 3 defense, but I think he has 4 recover. Right.
Yeah.
So with Spider-Man, unlike every other hero in the game, you don't get any extra benefit from recovering instead of defending, and so therefore you can defend a fair amount more often than some other heroes would. Like if you think you need to defend to just keep yourself from dying, go for it, because unlike many other heroes where it's like, I want to take a lot more damage and then I'll flip down and I'll heal, and that will be more efficient because I'm recovering for 5 instead of defending for 2 or something.
Yeah.
So that's one thing for him. He has a really crappy recover.
I've got 2 tips.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, go
focus on
ahead.
that alter ego and hero ability. So that alter ego ability scientist is generate a mental resource when you're paying for a card in alter ego form. You have to spend that when you're in alter ego. You can't generate the resource, flip, and then spend it. And a lot of his cards, like swinging web kick and webbed up, they require hero form. But I think you mentioned earlier playing his web shooter or spider tracer with that scientist ability is really, really good. allies are like the best thing usually you can play, or upgrades with that ability. So you can make Black Cat only cost 1, you can make Nick Fury in your opening hand only cost 3 and then replenish himself. So focus on ways to use that scientist ability and make sure you don't stuff your deck with 30 hero actions, because then you're never going to get to use it. And on the
Exactly.
exactly, yeah. And then on the other side, be careful with stun, because that spider senses only goes off when the villain attacks you or initiates an attack against you. Stun and webbed up, those are replacement effects. So if you have the villain webbed up, Rhino doesn't attack you, you don't get to draw that card for spider senses. I think Spider-Man's the only hero that, with no setup, when you flip every turn, as long as the villain's not stunned, they're attacking you, and you have a 6-card hand size in hero form. Like Iron Man can get there, but he's got to play a bunch of tech upgrades first. So take advantage of that large or artificially large hero hand size by not overly stunning the villain and making sure they at least attempt to initiate attacks against you.
Absolutely. And with that, remember that you only get that card if it's the villain initiates an attack against you. So you're gonna have to be, if you're in multiplayer, be thinking about that. Like, how can we kind of time our stuns as a team to where maybe, you as Iron Man, or if Iron Man is the first player, then that's fine that the villain's stunned, because now stun will be removed when he would attack Iron Man, and now he's gonna actually attack me and initiate an attack, so I'll draw that card. Otherwise, it's really awkward if like the stun goes off against Spider-Man, and then Iron Man's like, "Oh no, please don't attack me," and you could defend for him, but you're still not drawing the card because you only draw the card if it's. So that would be my tip for like a easily missed rule. Maybe I don't know if people miss that, but like at least missing the strategy of that.
Totally. Well, let's get to our deck builds. Why don't you pick one of your decks and go through the deck, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, you know what? I will talk about my aggression one first, because I liked what you mentioned about being careful with stunning. And this deck really leans into that idea. I'll tell you before I go into this deck, I actually really, really loved, right after the Hulk hero pack came out, I played a ton of Spider-Man using toe-to-toe, but I also used Dropkick, because I think that Spider-Man is actually one of the most capable heroes at pulling off Dropkick, because if he plays his web shooters, those are providing wild resources, which can give you physical resources. He can play a Quinn Carrier for a wild resource. He can play a Martial Prowess for a physical resource. And if he doesn't really want to play his webbed up, which he often doesn't, webbed up is a physical resource,
Oh
as
yeah,
well
nice.
as backflip is a physical resource, which if you're not getting attacked, you're not really wanting to play backflip. So you've got the resources to play drop kick. And that was a really fun style of play. It was essentially like just really stun him hard, draw cards, use toe to toe, maybe even stun him, use toe to toe, and then stun him again. Maybe use webbed up with drop kick such that like he's both webbed up and stunned, so he's 3 deep stunned. And that was a really fun style. But this deck I have right now is not that. It actually is trying to lean in the other direction, to where you actually aren't stunning the villain. You're actually asking him to attack you. So here we go. This is the aggression deck. So it is going to have a whole suite of basic cards. So bear with me here. It's going to have energy, genius, and strength, right? So the 3 normal resource cards. It's going to have 2 copies of the Power in All of Us, which is that resource card for basic. Avengers Mansion and Quinn Carrier as support cards to build up resources. 2 copies of Honorary Avenger and a copy of Endurance. It's going to have, for allies, it's going to have, 6 basic allies: Ironheart, Lockjaw, Mockingbird, Nick Fury, Spider-Man, that's Miles Morales, and War Machine. It's going to have 2 aggression allies, Brawn and Spider-Girl. It's going to have, then for events, a bunch of aggression events. So it's going to have 3 toe-to-toe, 2 press the advantage, and 2 you'll pay for that. So that's the whole deck. It's a heavy basic deck with more of a, what is it? 9 aggression cards. And I can walk you through it a little bit. So, like I said, Avengers Mansion and Queen Carrier, they're both mental resources, so that's great for Black Cat. And those both really expand just what he's capable of by building out his resources. Endurance is great, again, for the reasons said before, that it really opens up his window of health. Honorary Avenger is fun because you can either put it on him to even further expand his window of health, or you can just throw it on an ally here or there to get a little bit of extra juice out of that ally. A really good candidate for that would be either Lockjaw, because then it turns Lockjaw from a 2-use ally into a 3-use. Because he now has enough health to thwart again, or thwart block. And then War Machine is also another good candidate for that, because then War Machine can just thwart again. But you could also use one on Spider-Man, or on Spider-Man or Spider-Girl if you just need to push a little bit more damage out of them and didn't want them to go away yet. And then with the allies, there's a ton of allies. And part of that is, you're not stunning the villain very often. So quite often you're going to be wanting to block with an ally. So like Nick Fury, of course, is great in that way, where you play him, he does a lot for you, and then he can just soak a hit. Lockjaw, again, you can play Lockjaw, thwart, take a hit. Ironheart can take a hit. Spider-Girl can take a hit. War Machine can block with his toughness and absorb a big overkill, like a charge from Rhino.
Yep.
The reason why you have things like War Machine and Lockjaw in there, though, it is honestly for the threat removal is first and foremost. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a great card for Spider-Man, for Peter Parker, because it's either he can come in and either do 4 damage immediately, which is great for dealing with a minion or with an awkward amount of damage that has to be dealt, or he can remove 3 threat, which is such a clutch number, especially in solo, where many side schemes are exactly 3 threat. So he's great for dealing with a side scheme. And what's crazy about Miles Morales is if you actually use him for damage and not threat removal, he's a swinging web kick just spread out. He deals 8 damage for 3 costs. It's crazy.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so he's great. Spider-Girl, so get this. Spider-Girl does something kind of fun for you. So say you're playing, let's just say Rhino. No, let's say Claw. And you've got a big Master of Evil that just came out. You could play Spider-Girl, if you happen to have her as well. Play her, and stuns and confuses that big minion. And then you can start pinging away at the minion, but don't totally kill him yet, because you could let him live, and he's stunned, so he won't attack you. He's confused, so if you flip down, he won't scheme. Keep him alive so that you have a longer period where there's a minion out there not doing anything, but who's gonna sit out there. You can bring his health down, and then once you draw into a Spider Tracer, throw a Spider Tracer on him, and then you can finish him and remove threat. So that's the theory with that. And then Brawn, basically, I think Brawn is great for Spider-Man because that one threat removal is really great, as well as the one damage. I honestly think it'd be a toss-up if you had Brawn and Black Cat in your hands. I think that both are so great for him. As long as he has at least one out there working for him, like that's great. But I think Brawn is fantastic for him.
Yeah,
So
not
that's
many
a little.
games are going to go 5 more turns, right? So
Yeah,
may as well play
exactly.
Braun.
Exactly. So that's kind of the thought for him. Mockingbird, similarly, like you could actually stun the villain, or you could just stun a minion and keep the minion out there for the spider tracers.
What's
And
the
then
goal with press the advantage?
yeah, suppress the advantage. The idea there is, I think honestly, getting stunned and exhausted can be a big pain for him in a lot of scenarios. So the idea there is it's essentially a cheap way to ready or to clear a stun,
Okay, that makes sense.
or to just knock out a small minion. If that minion was stunned or confused by Spider Girl, it goes well with that. So that's kind of the idea with that, and it is a mental resource, so it will be in your deck. I thought about like, would it be better to have Press the Advantage or Haymaker? I think that Press the Advantage works better for him because it also can. Sometimes you run into issues with Spider-Man where you've got just like a bum hand of like cards that you'd rather be using in the villain phase. Um, Press the Advantage has at least the possibility that could be cycling for you. You play it and you'll be drawing a new card. So there's at least like that hope that maybe it could be drawing you into, maybe a big expensive card that you could play.
That makes
Uh,
sense. I was thinking maybe Skilled Strike would work because you can get Spider-Man's attack up to 4, and then you get into that minion range. But it doesn't
yeah,
clear stunned for you like press the advantage. So I like that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then toe to toe, of course, is the big. So it says the villain attacks you, and then deal 5 damage to the villain. I think that it's a great card. It's interesting because if you have, say, you're an alter ego, and you draw into a backflip, normally that's just like a totally dead card, right?
Yep.
And so instead, if you have a toe to toe and a backflip, you actually have a great, attack event right there, where you could just flip, do toe to toe. You'll actually draw a card, and then just use your backflip if you need to dodge all that damage. And then you've just dealt 5 damage to the enemy.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that's toe to toe, and then of course you'll pay for that is that threat removal. And so this deck, I just think it's fun too. It just feels fun. You'll pay for that in toe to toe. Like those are just some of the most fun cards. I really would fight for Hulk Hero Pack having some of the most fun cards in the game. I think they're just really fun to play with. So yeah, so that's the theory of my aggression deck.
Well, cool. We should keep moving. I will do the leadership deck next, if that's okay with
Great.
you.
Sounds great.
So this one is called Black Cat Steals the Show. We probably knew this one was coming.
I
Um,
was expecting this. Yeah.
I love when the signature ally for a hero can basically like just become the hero by building a whole deck around them. I think you can do that with Shuri by having her fish up whatever upgrade you need. And the other core set hero you can do that with is core set ally you can do that with is Black Cat, right? Because there's no consequential damage. And with Ant-Man's pack, we got all those tools to sort of Voltron Black Cat. So you can put an honorary Avenger on her and then inspire her or put Power Gloves or Sky Cycle on her. And all of a sudden she's attacking twice per turn for 3 damage. And it's just insane. So here's the deck. We'll go through it. It's pretty standard. I don't think there's anything that special about it, but it's still super fun. So I encourage people, if you haven't tried this out, check it out.
Yep.
It only requires 5 packs, which actually sounds like a lot, but it's not as much as I thought it was going to be. Okay, so 6 allies: Ant-Man, Black Cat, Ironheart, Maria Hill, Nick Fury, and Squirrel Girl. I did go like as all in on the mental resources as I could in this one. So
Yeah, I love it.
all
I
the
love it.
allies other than Black Cat, mental. For events, I've got my 3 assess the situation, which I think a lot of Spider-Man decks will do because anytime you draw that card off Black Cat and it's like a dead card in your hand, you feel bad. But when you draw assess, it just turns into a card in your next turn. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
2 backflip, 2 enhanced spider sense, the 3 web kicks, and then I put 3 copies of Get Ready just because it's a 0 cost event that can let Black Cat go one more time. I did the 3 basic double resources, and for supports I had Aunt May, Team Training, and Triskelion. You could probably drop Team Training for something cheaper. You don't need I think Team Training costs, I guess only costs 2. I was thinking it costs 3. You don't need that extra hit point on Black Cat, but it doesn't hurt for all your other allies. Maria can now thwart for 6 and things like that. That really helps Spider-Man. For upgrades, I've got 3 copies of Honorary Avenger because you need to make Black Cat an Avenger for this to work out. I've got 2 copies of Inspired, so you can play that on Black Cat to get her to 2 thwart, 2 attack. 2 copies of Power Gloves, you have to play it on an Avenger, max 1 per ally. After that ally attacks or thwarts, you deal 1 damage to an enemy, so that's how Black Cat gets to her 3 damage per attack. And then Sky Cycle can go on to an Avenger ally again, gives that ally aerial. We don't care about that part, but it lets you exhaust Sky Cycle to ready that character. So once you get those 3 upgrades or 4 upgrades on Black Cat, seems like a lot, but she's then all of a sudden attacking for 6 per turn, 9 if you have a Get Ready, and at that point she's just basically a hero, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean it's pretty basic. There's a ton of mental resources. I had a hard time choosing like what allies to cut. I really like to have Mockingbird for that stun. I feel like Mockingbird is like an MVP ally in every deck you can play except for Hawkeye. And then
It's
maybe the
so
other
good.
Mockingbird is. But I went with Nick Fury for the mental resource and Squirrel Girl for the same reason. She can damage some of those minions because you're not going to be using Black Cat for ping damage when she's dealing 3. So you'll want to kill the Ultron drones and things like that with Squirrel Girl. Um, Not a ton of allies that have 2 thwarts. So you've got Ant-Man, you've got Maria Hill, and Nick Fury. But with Inspired, you have lots of options still. If you can get Ant-Man out there with 4 Pim particles and play Inspired on him, now he's a 3/3, so he's like 12 threat removal over several turns. That seems really, really good.
That's really good. I hadn't thought about inspired Ant-Man. That's inspired.
It's Inspired, right? It seems a little
Yep.
like bad, right? Because you're paying 5 resources for that 12 threat. But anytime you can spread that threat over multiple turns, especially in solo, right? Rhino draws advanced, and you don't have your enhanced. What is it? Not enhanced. Yeah, enhanced spider senses to cancel it. It's not that big of a deal because you just leave Ant-Man out there and say, whenever the threat gets to 3, I'm going to use him and remove it. Otherwise, he'll just sit there as a token on my board.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
What do you think?
That's awesome.
Anything to consider? Have you tried using assess the situation a lot with Spider-Man yet?
I've tried it with him, and I do like it. I have. Let's see. What are my feelings on it? It's such a funny card that I'm still just enjoying feeling out how it really ends up playing. If that makes sense?
I get you.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I think it's totally fair to just be. You could even like throw it on top of a 40 card deck and just be like, I'm gonna have 3 assess the situation in there, you know. But I really like how it just messes with the flow of a deck.
I
And
I
yeah,
find with Spider-Man a lot, I end up with like 1 card left over in my hand, and sometimes that card is backflip. So I'm like, okay, I don't feel too bad holding on to this, or it's Spider Senses, so I hold on to it to cancel something. That's actually something that Spider-Man has to do a lot, is he holds on to cards. But when it's assess, I can toss it in hero form. And then the next turn with my spider senses, I basically get up to 7 cards. When you have 7 cards, you can play right like a Nick Fury and 2 swinging web kicks or something like game changing. And at 6, you're just like
totally.
1 resource short. So I like it for that aspect of it.
No, I do like that, and I honestly I think it might also be in some ways particularly helpful with this specific Black Cat um, strategy because you could, you kind of get bigger hands that can maybe you get Black Cat on the table, and then the same turn you've got enough cards and resources to also like get her inspired immediately that same turn, get her power gloves, get her or a sky cycle or whatever it is, like get her kind of going the same turn you play her, because you had like a big 7-8 card hand. So I think that works well, as well as some of these cards you might be like, I no longer want a second inspired because I already have it out on Black Cat. So like having the flexibility that Assess the Situation gives you of like, because I think the thing with Assess the Situation is not just the resources, but it's the card options is really helpful for him. So, because sometimes I just feel like with Spider-Man, you have to be drawing into enough cards to where you get some of those big, strong cards that he has that he can spend a lot of resources on. So, you're gonna be wanting to draw into an Ant-Man, a Nick Fury, a swinging web kick, a webbed up even maybe that you can spend a bunch of cards on. So I like it. I like the singular focus of it, but I think it would have plenty of things it can do in the meantime until you get down to Black Cat. And also, actually, this is a big thing. Assess the Situation should cycle you faster, right?
I was just going to bring that up. A lot of people don't. It's kind of counterintuitive when you want to do like deck thinning and cycling your deck really fast. You'd think don't include any extra events. But with
Yeah.
Assess, let's say you had 5 cards in your first hand and 5 cards in your next hand. If you have 3 Assesses in that first hand, instead of seeing 10 cards over 2 turns, you see 13. So that's
Yes.
like a huge difference, right? Especially when you're searching for combo pieces and stuff like that.
Exactly, which you are searching for one specific
One card.
card to get it rolling, and then everything else will attach to her. But yeah, no, I think that's very, very smart then to include those 3. I actually want to go play this like as soon as possible. This sounds really fun.
Well, let's move on to your Spider-Man protection deck because I'm excited to hear about
Yeah.
how you use the new Quicksilver stuff for this.
Yes. Oh, actually, sorry, I actually don't have Quicksilver yet. So,
Gasp.
yeah. So this is not using Quicksilver. And actually, no. Here's the thing, though. I looked through his cards, and I was like, well, what can I proxy as I'm like making this deck? Um, and all week I've been playing Spider-Man Protection, and none of it has been with any Quicksilver cards because honestly, I think I just like all these cards I have. So it is though using proxies for bait and switch, as I mentioned. So bait and switch is that the villain attacks you, remove 4 threat from the main scheme. So I think I shared it to you, but it's I've got 3 preemptive strike in the Marvel CDB deck
Makes
builder,
sense.
just to stand in for bait and switch, because it's also a 1 cost energy event. So let me walk through it. Okay, so this is Spider-Man Protection, and again, this is beat Rhino Heroic 1 pretty handily. So it's got some cred. All right, so funny enough, it has the exact same basic cards as the Avenger deck, aggression deck, So it has an Avengers Mansion, it has a Quinn Carrier for the resources, it has an Endurance and 2 Honorary Avengers. It has the Energy Genius Strength, the 2 power in all of us. It has all those same 6 basic allies: Ironheart, Lockjaw, Mockingbird, Nick Fury, Spider-Man, and War Machine. So it's got all those same basic cards. It also has 2 Haymakers, actually, because the power in all of us can be used on that. And again, it's just a way to deal damage or break his stun or whatever it is. It's great for dealing with minions. And then it's got just 1 protection ally, Luke Cage. It's got 1 protection support, which is the Night Nurse. And then it's got 5 protection events. So it's got 2 Muster Courage and 3 Bait and Switch.
Nice.
Yeah, and this deck, I mean, you kind of see what it's doing very clearly when it's playing a heroic Rhino, because what it's doing is you are getting your allies out there, right? It has 8 allies in the deck. You're getting allies out there to deal with that first side scheme, and then you are then getting tough on them. War Machine comes in with tough. Luke Cage comes in with tough. Muster Courage is going to give tough to Spider-Man and then someone else. You can even you can even save a tough on black cat for whenever you need it, because since
That's
she
pretty
doesn't,
cool.
yeah, because she doesn't, lose it because of consequential damage. So throw that on her for when you're just, have a surprise, like, oh, he's stampeding, I don't have any other card to deal with this. Okay, I'll just defend with black cat. So you get tough. The night nurse is worth her weight in gold versus anyone who stuns or confuses, which heroic rhino with bomb scare is going to be confusing you with the bomb scare card, and stunning you with stampede, stunning you when he flips to stage 3. So night nurse, you'll basically use every single use of her specifically to clear a status card. And then the honorary Avengers, as I said before, again, can either be used just to beef up Spider-Man, but more likely you're going to need them to beef up War Machine to be dealing with threat. And then Bait and Switch is just a beautiful card for Spider-Man. It's super fun to use. Again, especially when you have flipped to alter ego, and then you drop your hand. If you draw into a bait and switch and a backflip, it's just a totally beautiful thing where you then flip over. The villain has just schemed since you were in alter ego. So there's going to be a lot of threat in the main scheme. You can do bait and switch, draw a card, and then just backflip if you need to. And yeah, that's really what's going on. Got thoughts, questions?
Pretty cool. I really like protection with Spider-Man. I feel like it's really really strong, and I'm excited to see how bait and switch works out. That gives you really like the best threat control of all because you can maintain hero form pretty much forever, and then bait and switch is going to let you still reduce that threat. So you should never be having a problem with threat, which is really neat.
Yeah, it is good. The only issue with bait and switch you got to remember is that it is strictly from the main scheme.
Ah, so you
It's
can't hit side schemes with bait and switch.
exactly, which is why it's still really important for you to be playing around. Use War Machine as a big thwarter for you for side schemes. Using Spider-Man Miles Morales is a great removal of a side scheme. Nick Fury can help you out with that. Mockingbird and Lockjaw do their part. Or sorry, Mockingbird and Ironheart do their part. Lockjaw is great for emergency threat removal. Because really, it's not that bad to play Lockjaw from discard pile. Like that's like playing a 3-cost card from hand, right? Because if you're playing from discard pile, um, it's equivalent to that. So you play. It's like playing a 3-cost card that's going to remove 2 threat now and then 2 threat again, or 2 threat and block for you, which is really not bad if you need it in that exact moment to get rid of a side scheme. So yeah, you still have to deal with those side schemes, but you only really have to deal with the side schemes. You don't have
Yeah,
to deal
not bad at
with.
all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Do you
I'm very proud of it. I would very much suggest that people try it out. It's a fun deck.
Is this the deck you've been taking up against Heroic Rhino?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
So I've been messing with it to just try and get a sense for, is there a way to more consistently get a win with Heroic 2? But this, I've definitely beaten Heroic 1. Again, this can beat Heroic 1, like, I hesitate to say easily, but pretty easily, I would say. And there's lots of slight variations you could do with this. You can make it a lot more protection, like a lot more. You could play with a lot more protection cards, like energy barriers, power of protection, Brother Voodoo, a bunch of those cards if you wanted to. But I think it's. I don't know. I like playing with the power in all of us and getting Avengers Mansion and Queen Carrier online. I think that just provides him a little bit more stability. Yeah, but you can do a bait and switch protection deck. Bait and switch Night Nurse, Muster Courage, Luke Cage. Those are the key things. And then you got to either have some really good protection cards, or that whole suite of of Wasp basic cards that can help you deal with threat, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of tough, we're almost through our hour, so I'll jump to this last deck,
Yes.
which was originally going to be a deck all about tough and justice. I was going to try to use invulnerability, and I chickened out. I'm going to
Oh.
save that for Spider Woman because I think there's a cool combo there.
Okay. Spider Woman of all people.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. So this is going to be a Spider-Man deck instead. So let me go through the deck.
Yeah.
It's called Flippity Flop Spider-Man because you're going to be trying to flip every turn to Spider-Man, which is the opposite of what you probably normally want to do. And this is definitely a multiplayer deck. So we've got Black Cat, Ironheart, Mockingbird, Quake, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Not Spider-Man, Justice Spider-Man. So you've only got Quake as a Justice ally there. You have 19 events, which is just crazy for me. Normally, I try to run like as few events as possible. I actually built the Spider-Woman one because I want to try it later tonight, and it had like 29 events in it, and I'm like, what is wrong with my life? What am I? What am I doing? Okay, so it's got 2 backflips, 2 enhanced spider senses. When I started building this deck, I was just going to include all the cards that had art of Spider-Man or Spider-Man villains on them because I thought that would
I
be
love
cool.
that. Yeah,
But there
yeah.
wasn't nearly enough in Justice and Basic, so I had to deviate. But I put 3 copies of Foiled, where he's like pulling back Fisk's hand. 3 copies of Great Responsibility, which is going to be an important combo piece here, and then 3 copies of Lay Down the Law. I have my 3 swinging web kicks, and then I put in 3 concussive blows because I want to be able to confuse the enemy. I've got my 3 basic resources. Just for reference, so far, only 4 cards from the Justice aspect have cost 2 or more. That's why I didn't put Power of Justice in.
Yeah.
For supports, I just have Aunt May. Under upgrades, I put 3 honorary Avengers, which was basically me trying to get endurance, but it probably could be 2 honorary Avengers and an endurance. They're not needed to be honorary Avenger. I put 1 sense of justice just so that eventually you could pay for those laid on the laws for free. Every time you flip, you're going to remove 4 threat from a scheme. That sounds really good, really good. I put 2 skilled investigators in there because flipping and using laid on the law is going to be a great way to get rid of side schemes. So if you're flipping, getting rid of a side scheme, and then drawing a card, you're going to feel really good about having gone to alter ego turn the turn before. And then I got my tracers, my web shooters, and my webbed up. So my goal here is to optimize Aunt May. So I want to use cards like Great Responsibility to just soak a bunch of damage instead of letting threat be placed. Because if too much threat gets placed, that's always a problem for Spider-Man. But he can take 5 damage to face in multiplayer if there's an acceleration token out there, and it's no big deal for him. Because he can just flip down with Aunt May and then heal that all back in 1 turn.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're going to have to use Concussive Blow so that the villain doesn't scheme while you do that. But at the same time, you can have minions like Quake that are not minions, allies like Quake that can take care of minions when you do flip down to alter ego form. So I tried to include lots of cards that would encourage you to flip down and see more Peter Parker. So you've got Quake in here. We've got Foiled, which can be used in hero or alter ego form to remove the boost card from a scheme activation. We've got our lay down the laws. We've got our great responsibilities. So one thing is great responsibility is a hero interrupt. So you're only going to be able to play that when you're in Spider-Man form. So ideally, this is like a 2-player deck or a 4-player deck, and you absorb that initial threat, or you take an attack, so you draw up to 6 cards, and then Rhino schemes against your buddy, and maybe he flips a 3 boost icon card, and you say, "No, I'll use great responsibility." That's 0 threat on the scheme instead of 4. Seems good to me. And
Yeah.
then you flip down and heal it all up with Aunt May, and it's been super fun testing it so far. I have not enjoyed it. It does not do very well solo because there's just very little opportunities for the combos to work. Right? If you
Yeah.
want to use foiled, you can at least do that in alter ego form. But if you want to use great responsibility, like you're always doing it on that like 1 auto threat or on a draw of advance. So you really need to play this in multiplayer for it to go off best.
I love it. I love it though. That's actually really fun. Great Responsibility is a card that I'm slowly coming back around to. Having played so much solo, it just rarely sees the table. And then, but yeah, I love that you're really giving it a reason. I love when you find the reason for why a card has a certain hero pictured. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
then you're like, oh, Great Responsibility. Why does it have Spider-Man on it? Well, because he can soak all that damage and then flip down and heal it up without May. And Concussive Blow, such a fun card. I still think that's just one of my top cards. It's so fun. I mean, how many cards even confuse? Is it? It's one of the only.
You have very
Uh,
few.
it's one of the only non-hero specific cards
Yep.
that confuses. Maybe
And you could swap that Concussive Blow for a Stealth Strike if you think you're going to have minion problems. Since it's multiplayer, I'm assuming there's some aggression person that's just going to kill all the minions for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's fun to hone it in that way though. That's great.
My favorite move was we were playing 4-player, and if you use Great Responsibility in Phase 2 of Ultron's scheme, the one that's got 10 threat per player, the Assault on NORAD, we had like 2 acceleration tokens out, so it was putting 6 threat out, and I absorbed it all with Great Responsibility, and then none of us had to choose to put drones or more threat. So we really avoided like 14 threat for one like card, and I was like, "This is awesome."
Absolutely, yeah. That he heals up for free without May. That's insane. Yeah.
So hear this pitch for Spider-Woman Justice Protection.
Yeah. Okay.
So containment immunity gives you tough. The new Quicksilver card, I think it is, Perseverance. When you flip, you can gain tough, or maybe it was the Wasp card, the protection card. So you can get 5 cards in your deck. If you included Muster Courage, you could get 6 cards in protection that give Spider-Woman tough. And then she can Great Responsibility, avoid all the threat, and take no damage.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like, Magic Christmas Land when you have the 15 card combo that it works out. But it seems really fun, so I'm going to try it, see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, especially like you were mentioning in a 4-player game, sometimes there's more, large amounts of threat being added to things. I'm forgetting. Is Great Responsibility, is it only the main scheme or is it a scheme?
When threat is placed on any scheme, so like the initial threat that goes on a scheme won't work. But if a scheme is like place 2 threat and when revealed also place 3 threat per player, like with the new Hinder ability coming up in Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yep.
you'll be able to avoid that threat too, which could be really cool.
Yes, exactly. I think there's the under attack is somewhat similar, right? I think it's you choose to either place 2 threat, but those are all individual choices for that one. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
It can work on the Wrecking Crew side schemes, but we don't need help with the Wrecking Crew, it seems like. So.
No, exactly. Oh my gosh, no, not really. That's really fun. I like that a lot. Yeah, Perseverance is in the Wasp pack because I do own that. I do own that. And actually it is it's definitely been in iterations of that protection deck that I just shared as well. And it's fun. I think I just have I am still a little bit torn on flip to hero cards when you're not Ant-Man. Just because I feel like I've had, you get those unlucky times where you only draw them when you're in the wrong, when you're already in hero form.
Definitely going to happen. It happened a lot when I was practicing this deck, so I wouldn't doubt it.
Exactly. So, and that's just variance, and you have to just be prepared for it. But I think it's tough with someone like Spider-Man, who any hero that it's like, you're going to probably have bum cards in every hand. You can't really afford bum cards, so that's my anti-pitch against Perseverance, but it's actually an amazing card. It really is.
And even Lay Down the Law. I really like Lay Down the Law because you can mulligan hard for it, right? If you're going against Rhino and you don't draw a 2 thwart ally, you're like, I just pitch all 6 cards. I've got 3 allies and 3 Lay Down the Laws in here, and any one of those solves my problem. And even if it just solves that first side scheme problem, it's probably paid for its like deck slot.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So true.
I tried to put in Wanda's pack, there's the Swift Retribution card that was spoiled. The villain schemes deal 4 damage to the villain, but it just did not work out. I was like, oh, it'll be so fun with Spider-Man, but like the rest of the deck, it did not gel with. So we ignored it and moved on.
Yes, that is a cool looking card though to have. Yeah, I think that's the first card. I think that prompts the villain to scheme. I believe from the hero side, which I think is so fun because, I mean, how many times are you stuck with a ton of ways to thwart but not threat out there? Like that does happen.
Yeah, I had one instance where I had like Ultron Scheme and he tried to place like 6 threat, and then I could prevent it with no responsibility, or not no responsibility, great responsibility. And I was like, oh, the combo finally worked. But it was far and few in between when I draw them in the same hand. So it is one to still consider in this deck, especially once you get Scarlet Witch. Try slotting it in for something. Maybe you slot it in for, let me look here, for foiled or something like that. You could also use foiled with that too. So maybe I should reconsider this and just try it again, because
Yeah.
the villain schemes, if you've got a foiled in your hand, then you know what value is getting added, so you don't have to worry about it, like it's predetermined. And if you have great responsibility, you just turn it into damage and flip down and Aunt May it, and it's just 1 cost for 4 damage. Seems good. So maybe I'll have to try it again. I don't know why I thought it didn't work. I don't know what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
I say try it again, but man, that would be so much more helpful if the damage could be dealt to like to any enemy. Just because, man,
Like toe to toe is pick an enemy to attack you. If this was pick an enemy to scheme, it could be like the automatic minion killer for Spider-Man.
exactly. Even if it was the villain schemes, deal 4 damage to an enemy. I just think like being able to deal with minions is such a big deal. But it makes sense that it's not that, since it's a justice card, and you shouldn't be the best minion removal on the table. So
Yeah, Moon Knight's kind of attacking minions in the card art though, so it's hard to know. I don't know.
oh man, that's so true.
Theme, come on.
Come on. Yeah, that's great. Well, this is awesome. I love, if you couldn't tell, I love talking about Spider-Man, and I could talk about him a lot longer. He's really fun. And then my last thing for him would just be like, if anyone has listened this far and is not sold on playing Spider-Man, like you should go play Spider-Man, because I think that the game in many ways feels designed around him. I just think he really, so much of like how the game works, and then how you can flip the basic assumptions of the game on its head a little bit. You see that in Spider-Man, and it's just, he's a really clean hero to play, really fun. So it does some things that no one else does, and I really think that new hero packs continue to bring him new cards that he can just do a lot of fun things with, like toe to toe, bait and switch, all the basic cards in Wasp. And so yeah, I highly recommend people to swing around and give him another chance.
Yeah, I think that he's my ultimate team up teaching deck. Whenever I want to teach someone the game, I let them pick whatever hero they want in whatever aspect, and I run Spider-Man protection, and I say, okay, you do hero things, and I'm going to defend for you every turn.
Exactly.
And people love it because they just get to do whatever they want. They feel like the hero, and in reality, I know that I defended for them like 15 times, and it's okay. But it's just such a good deck to team with people. So cool.
Totally.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
We're
thanks for having me.
back to our Power of series, continuing with Captain America next. So we'll see how he pairs up against Spider-Man next month.